Everybody, it's Ryan here coming to you live from Australia, from AUSHAMMER. I've got with me tonight Nico, all the way from UK, our favourite prisoner of Her Majesty. How you going, buddy?
I'm all good, thanks. Thanks a lot for having me. Excited to be here.
Have you got enough tea before we start?
Ooh, my cup is running a tad low, but I'll be all right.
Is it true what they say that nobody in the UK has sugar with their tea?
Some people do. I go with lots of milk myself, but you know.
Is it heresy? Is it heresy to have sugar in your tea?
No.
Okay. I had to double check. It was a question from one of our fans. They wanted to know. Who knows why? But yeah. There was other questions as well. Do you stir your tea with your plastic men? Do you let your plastic men drink your tea? There's a lot of tea-orientated questions here. So
I did stick a Forge World model into a boiling pot of water yesterday to bend it, which was apparently the advice that they give in the book. So it did work, I have to say.
So you boiled a Forge World.
You're very shocked by
that. That's impressive. I don't think I'd ever have the balls to do that, man. All the dollars for Forge World. So whoa. All right, so before we get into it tonight, a lot of our viewers obviously see your battle reports and things like that, but may not know as much about you as I do, or Tom and the Warhammer Weekly guys and everything. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I got back into Wargaming pretty much on the outset of AOS, and I immediately wanted to sort of try off-the-wall, slightly unusual lists, and find different combos that most people wouldn't have seen. I knew I couldn't compete with established players from eighth edition who had infinitely more experience than I did. So I thought, having knowledge of what all the War Scrolls did and playing with as many armies as I possibly could would hopefully level the playing field a bit and give me a chance. So I've kind of rattled through all 4 Grand Alliances over the last couple of years. So I started off actually with Nurgle of all things, which is
winning.
Quite excited about yesterday's leaks with the Nurgle beast that seems to be on its way. So that's cool. Hoping for the new Great Unclean One and all that. But haven't used them for a while. Yeah, you're a Nurgle fan.
Oh, mate, yeah. Look, a while ago, I don't know if you remember, but Tom from Warhammer Weekly did that unlocking with Mitch.
Yeah.
When I watched that, I went out and got a Nurgle army, like those lists. Yeah, and to this day, I blame Tom for like 30% of my crack addiction. So
he's a dangerous example to follow. But
he is. Yes, he is. Yeah.
Cheers, Tom, for the shout out and for inviting on. So anyway, so after Nurgle, I did some Death, did some Tomb Kings, did some Mixed Death, did a bit of Feck as well, Flesh Eater Courts. Sort of mixed it up a lot. Then I did a more crazy list. I did mostly Grots, which was 4 horrible Forge World monsters and 23 goblins, or Grots, I should say. So mostly Grots.
Wow.
At Reign of Stars, which was great fun. Then I switched to Chaos again and did not the big Archaeon, but the little one. So little Archaeon.
Little Archaeon as in on foot or on horseback Archaeon?
On horseback, yeah, the metal.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
A great model, but it's metal one. So did a load of Skaven generals like Warlords and Tzeentch Craventail, who basically gives people extra rend, which is always nice.
Yeah.
And then just blocks and blocks of clan rats and storm vermin, and you obviously know what Sail can do, or old style Sail can do to things. Basically, buff up the unit, lob it in. It does way more damage than its cost. Then you just repeat the process. Second cannonball flies in after that, and that worked pretty well. So that was fun.
How many friends did you make doing that?
People, I have to say, people usually enjoy, even if they lose painfully to some of these lists, and they're by no means foolproof. A lot of them are backfired spectacularly, but even if they lose to something like this. They generally enjoy the experience, or they say they do, because it's something new, because they haven't seen it down at the club, because it's different. And it maybe inspires them to do something. And certainly people have asked me about the list that I've done, and I have a hobby blog where I just describe my battle reports on TGA. So Nico's Hobby Lab. So that's where you can find battle reports about these various armies.
Definitely, and actually the link to that is in the comment section of this video already. So if anybody wants to listen to us and read those battle reports at the same time, there's already a link there. Check it out, because there's pages and pages of awesomeness there. I've actually learned a fair bit from it myself. So yeah,
it's kind of you to say. Thank you. Some semi-nice photos in there as well. So
well, actually, we're going to look at a couple of those tonight. So.
Very good. So that was Archeon's furry friends. Then came probably the most bizarre list of the lot, which was mostly Grots 2. So this was Blood and Glory last year, so not the one that's just about a month ago, the one that happened a year ago. So that was Gordrak, who you don't see very often.
No, you don't actually, yeah.
The old Gitmob battalion before they got rid of it. So this is basically a bunch of Grots, some Wolf Riders, and 36 metal monopose nasty skulkers.
36 metal ones.
312s, yeah.
And how many times did you curl up into the fetal position and cry for hours painting those?
It was quite a sacrifice, yeah. But it was worth it for basically Gordrak buffs the whole battalion. So the whole battalion gets charged 3d6, gets 2 extra attacks. So the Wolf Riders fly forward, hopefully make a charge. Even if they don't, a line of 12 nasty skulkers pop out. They attack before the enemy. Then another 12 pop out of them, attack.
Holy
another
crap.
12 pop out of them, attack. And they've all got sort of mortal wounds on 5 ups if they outnumber you, and an extra 2 attacks each, and so on. And basically it would routinely take out a couple of Stonehorns turn 1, which was quite remarkable. So that was great fun. I did go down to a clubmate and to Darren Palmer, because he also decided to bring 120 Grots. So we had 400, sorry, not 400. We had
Bloody Darren, that filthy bastard.
He's a great guy. But it was 240 Grots on what was it called? On Take It Hold, the old battle plan where you had to basically wipe out the opponent and get both objectives. So the two grindy armies with loads of models on the one where you had to wipe each other out. And I just went for it. I killed his Stonehorns turn 1, but then I either had to stand back and go for the minor because I win on kill points, or just YOLO Gordrak. And I basically meant I need to win an initiative, lost the initiative. He won by 700 kill points, which is Gordrak's price. So it was a phenomenal
Yeah, but
game.
you have the moral victory there of YOLOing, and that's always important.
I'm so glad I learned that word, because it seems to punctuate my conversation increasingly.
So you did mention your gaming group, South London Legion. What's the go there? Tell me about them.
Yeah, so they do good mixture of AOS. More recently, 40k has picked up, unsurprisingly, with the new edition. Shadespire's coming along. Necromunda is starting to come along, and we're doing a Blood Bowl league as well, so a really good variety. We are based down in Croydon, which may sound somewhat distant if you're in central or North London, but it's actually only 15 minutes away from London Bridge, which is where I live. So it's actually very easy to get there by train or by tram or driving. So it's very accessible. And we're also doing, or we're sponsoring an international tournament called Blood Tide, which is coming up in March next year, which should be interesting. We've hosted other events in the past, like London's Calling for AOS, and also Malifaux events. So Yeah, it's the club's going well. The AOS is definitely growing, and you can find us on Twitter.
Yep, definitely. I've also just put the link for your group down in there as well. So, and you guys are quite active on Twitter, and there's some really cool stuff that comes out as well. So, it's always cool to get up and see what you guys have been up to over there, because the scene just seems quite a bit different in the UK compared to what it is here. Before we went live, we were talking about the differences in the meta and things like that, and it is quite interesting to watch what you guys are up to over there, and your games and your GTs and things like that, and see the top 10 or the top 5 even, and what lists they're taking and things like that. And I mean, at the moment, there's obviously a fairly strong Stormcast presence, but other than that, there's quite a lot of differences between your meta and our meta, in that the armies are very different and how they're played seem quite different as well. We've got a fair few rat armies going around, like Clan Skyer and things like that, and Free Guild's making a bit of a comeback as well over here. So there's more of those kinds of things over here and less of the Chaos Demons and things like that. So it's really good because you get a sort of a fresh, I guess, not a fresh perspective, but it's a change from what we see over here as well, which is always as good as a holiday. So you guys have a really cool scene over there, and it sounds like you're right in the middle of it all. So a little bit jealous. But I did hear that you and your gaming group are paying for Brinley and I to fly over there next year and stay in a 5-star resort and game with you all for a week. So I do appreciate that, man. It's really kind of you.
Yeah, it's the underwater one, isn't it?
Yeah. So there was a round 1 of the list off, and Tom took that round. Then he went ahead and put your name forward as contender 1 for round 2. Why did he pick on you, do you think?
I've been on Warhammer Weekly with Vince and Tom, which is a real pleasure. We had a great time. I think we actually talked about Grot specifically. So we talked about all the Grot armies, but a lot of that was on the mostly Grots 2 list. The Nasty Skulkers again was a real highlight. I think even now, I mean, they've been nerfed quite a bit, but even now they've still got a few tricks in their bag. So they've got some good War Scrolls still. I think they can be a good part of, say, an Iron Jaws army. They can be allies potentially. I mean, people are going for things like bolt throwers and rock lobbers to give some reach to the sort of classic Iron Jaws army of some pigs and some brutes and some Arboys and the cabbage.
Yeah, giving it a bit of colour and excitement.
So I think we enjoyed that show, and then I often exchanged tweets with Tom and TGA messages and whatnot. So I think we see eye to eye on a lot of things. He likes Fire Slayers and KO, as you know.
Yeah, no one's perfect though. Don't hold it against him.
Well, yeah, I have a few KO models kicking around. Well, 11 painted, but I'll get there eventually.
Would you recognise a KO bum if one was shown to you?
Ooh, maybe. It'd probably be pretty metallic. And I just took Fire Slayers to Angel Call, which was really good fun. And they performed pretty well. As you said earlier, the Stormcast with the Vanguard wing are very much
yawn-worthy.
The thing.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm bored of them now. I want to see something different. It's too much Vanguard wing. It's being spammed.
It'd be cool to see the Chocobos, the Paladors, rock.
Yeah.
But I think Craig from our club is going to give them a try. But I think they're just a little bit overcosted. That they're more than Skyfires from memory, which is a bit silly.
Yeah. Well, anything to I guess try and take away a few Vanguard armies. There's just so many of them. I mean, it's it's understandable. I mean, it's wise to take one for a tournament, but you know, watching them just gets a bit repetitive. You know, you're either taking a Star Drake or you're taking a Hurricane or you're taking a Luminarch, and off you go. It's the same sort of, the same list with a few minor changes, and I have seen a lot of it. So
at least they're bringing Prime a couple of times. He was like out of the scene for like a year and a half, but he's had a 20-point cost reduction, I think, and he's suddenly cropping up here and there, which is good to see. Might have to dust off one.
Agreed. All right, so moving on, before we get into your list, it is a tradition, dare I say an Australian tradition here on AUSHAMMER, to look at a few asses, have a bit of a perv, and I have prepared some special bums for you tonight, sir. This is Guess That Booty. What I need you to do is look at the picture of the ass presented to you and tell me who owns that booty. So I'm going to get onto it, and I think our high score at the moment is 6 out of 10. So if you manage to beat that, you're doing pretty darn well, sir. So I'll start off here with number 1.
Oh, that's very small.
Yes, I will zoom in for you in uno momento.
I was doing some rehearsals for this on the old ladies' night show you did, and I was somewhat embarrassed to do quite well.
Yeah, sorry. How many did you get right again? I do remember you telling
me. Pretty easy to spot, Game of Thrones wise. So I'm gonna have to look right at that. It looks Seraphony. I'll go with a Carnosaur.
Okay. It's a War Hydra.
That's tough.
I know, it was a bit rough. If you look closely, that's actually a bum there, and that's a bum there, and that's a bum there. So there's actually quite a few asses in that.
Triple bum.
There's a lot of bum, yes. All right, so moving on to the next one. Guess that booty.
Looks watery. What is that colour? A blue horror? What's there? Skink.
I did look at it first as well and think blue horror myself. But this gave it away for me, the shield hand, so.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3. Guess that booty.
Oh, okay. That is a fire slayer. So, specifically, there's a lot of runes on there, so it's going to be one of the heroes. I would say I don't think it's the Rune Father. I think it's. Let's go with the Battlesmith.
Battlesmith. Good work.
That was tough to guess which one of the little.
That was
like 6 heroes.
I'll actually mention as well. A lot of their bums look the same. So, and I've spent more time than most looking at plastic bums. So, all right.
Of course, you do. When you're playing the army, you're always looking at them.
Well, this is true because most of the time you see your army from the back as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Guess that booty.
That looks Caradrony, I think. There's a lot of metal on the arm. There's a.
Yep, I like where you're going.
I think it's a chemist because that tent. Let me just think that tube thing goes to his gas gun, I believe. I'm going to go with the chemist.
Chemist is your final answer?
Yeah, Ether Chemist, please.
Engine Master.
Ooh, Engine Master.
All right, so you mentioned that you've done a few Chaos armies.
Okay.
So guess that booty.
What is that arm doing? It's got quite a lot of exposed skin. You could go with the Slaughter Priest.
You would be right, sir.
2, okay.
But that's 2 out of 5 already. So you can still bring this back.
Yep. 6 is tough.
Guess that booty.
Hello, that looks cute. I think that must be the bottom of a plague drone. It's clearly
correct.
Nurgle. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Good work.
That was me.
That's I find that very disturbing.
It is, isn't it? I mean,
because I looked at it and I thought, is that a bum or is it not?
Yeah, biology is not my strong point, but
Nurgle biology. Okay.
I don't think it's a proboscis. I think that's the thing coming out of its mouth. But pretty grim.
I do like that menu though. All right, moving on. So that's 3 now. Guess that booty.
Ooh, I think that is.
It's a fine-looking booty. Is what it is.
The Gorgon.
So Gorgon. It's a Cygor.
The dual kit.
It's hard. You don't see many of these around.
I think that is the dual kit with the Gorgon, so I was close.
It could be. I will give you half a point.
Okay, sweet.
Thanks. So 3.5. Guess that booty.
Tom. What is that? Pattern. What is that pattern? Absolutely stumped by this one. Wow. Let's go with a Palador. Vanguard. Oh, what?
It's a blue horror and brimstone horror. If you want to, yeah. You actually did say blue horrors earlier for the skink, I think.
Yeah, I need to look. There must be I don't know. I have to have a look at the back of mine.
You're at 3.5. If you get the next 2 right, you will take 2nd place in our Guess That Booty board.
Pressure's on.
Here we go. Guess that booty.
Oh my god. That looks grim. Right, chains around a red, horrible looking stumpy thing.
It's just a Friday night at my place.
Oh wow. That could be a squig, actually. Maybe it is a what are they called? The mangler squig? The mangler squigs? Oh,
correct.
Wow.
Mangler squigs. Oh, 4.5. All right. It all rests on this last one. Guess that booty.
Oh my. Could you please zoom in a tad more? Thanks. Ooh. I'm thinking Beast Claw for some reason, but
I would not disagree with you.
Could it be a Thundertusk? No, they got more of a tail, surely. A Yeti, maybe? Oh, maybe it's just a Morn. Let's go with a Mornfang Cav.
Ah, it's a Frost Saber.
Oh, dang. Oh, well, close.
4.5 puts you in 3rd place, sir.
Thank you. That was fun.
It's very difficult to get the booty. It's not always easy. Yeah, it's not always easy. Now, actually, before we,
I've just read the chat. I just noticed Brinley is.
Yeah, ignore Brinley. He doesn't have the right to speak in chat tonight. He's left us He's left us to do stuff. Now, I'm just going to go back here for a moment because I do want to show everybody something really cool that I liked that you've sent to me recently, and that is this guy. That's amazing, sir.
That's very kind of you. I found a use for the incredibly oversized axe on the Rune Father. He's having a little play with Dorgar, and yeah, it's Archeon. So there he is.
And just
multicolored.
Yeah, it's beautiful, mate. It's absolutely beautiful. I think it's a really, really well painted mini.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was most of November, which is all of November. So really, it's a really good kit actually. Goes together like a dream.
Yeah.
The water effects are a bit of a challenge, but got the 3 different colors of water in the bottom, which is fun. Yeah, finally found a use for some acolytes as well as basing material, so that's always good. Yeah, so yeah, really pleased with him. He may be coming out at Heat 1. We'll see what happens next year. So
maybe coming out to play.
Yeah, have a little
Excellent.
frolic. I do
like
call
it.
him
I
Derp.
like it.
I do call him Derp Guy because he's not terribly reliable.
Yeah, but he just looks amazing. You just take him because he looks amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Indeed. Let's get into it now. You understand the rules of list off. Each person presents a list, and that list is for general play. There are no strategical points or anything like that. The lists are to be played. Well, we are to suppose that they are played by 2 people of equal skill and knowledge in every single way, and then a panel of judges will discuss your lists, probably have a go at you for being British, and then decide on whose list wins. Now, you're going up against Clint from Heralds of War. He is the TO for the AOS side of CanCon, our biggest GT here in Australia, and he's also the man responsible for our first ever AOS Masters recently. So he's got a fair bit of knowledge with AOS as well. I think you two are quite equal, and your armies are going to be very different as well. So it's a really good matchup. Tom chose well, that's for sure. And tonight we're going to go over yours. Now, what army did you choose first of all?
I chose Tzeentch, which I've been doing most of this year, and I chose specifically a Fatesworn warband, which is a mortal Tzeentch warband. You find it under the Ever Chosen book, which is the Archeon book, since we just talked about it essentially. So it's one of the 4 god-specific battalions from that book, but can be used in a Tzeentch allegiance army.
Cool. All right, and yours has a bit of a twist, so I'm looking forward to this tonight. So I'm going to share with everybody else your main list first of all, and if you just want to run through this with us and talk to us about your choices and why you've chosen them, and what benefits they add to the list.
Sure. I mean, is it worth the overall, like the big picture of the list, and then we'll run through the War Scrolls?
If you want to run through the War Scrolls, I'm happy to do that.
Oh no, sorry, I meant run through the sort of the big picture, like
Yeah, 100%, definitely, yeah.
And then I'll describe each of the things in the list individually, if you like. So big picture, then talk about
sure.
Talk about the overall. Sweet. Okay. So the big point about this list is that it has a very large summoning pool, 780 points worth. So that gives you, as you can imagine, an enormous amount of flexibility. And the other good thing, and summoning is a frankly long neglected mechanic in the game. And part of that is because you have to actually cast spells to bring on summon units most of the time, with a few exceptions. So what Tzeentch gives you is, in that equation, is it gives you the destiny dice. So basically, for those who are less familiar, you roll 9 dice, 9d6 at the outset of the game, after setup, as I recall, and you are then able to substitute in advance these 9 dice for a given set of 9 particular rolls. I won't go through all of them, but the key ones for our purposes here are casting rolls, unbinding rolls, run and charge rolls, and then hit and wound rolls and save rolls. So quite a variety of things. So, for example, if you wanted to cast a spell that would summon on a greater demon that you need an 11 to cast, normally that would obviously be very hard to roll. But if you had a 6 and a 5 in your destiny dice pool, you could immediately use those before you roll, instead of rolling, and then you cast it on an 11, and the other side has to unbind on a 12, for example. So basically, they could take out the unreliability aspect from summoning, which is a big advantage. So the flexibility means, for example, that on the Duality of Death battle plan, I think that's the right name, where you've got hero scoring, that while the list itself has got 5 heroes in the list that's on the table at the start, you potentially spend all that 780 points on bringing on more heroes. And they can't actually score on the turn they're set up, because they have to move on to the objective, and moves and setups are distinct. But nevertheless, having that potential reserve of heroes that you could bring on, and they could be very tough heroes or numerous heroes, is really useful. Similarly, there's a bunch of battle plans, I think 2 of them, where 20 models will trump effectively. So if they could even have 30 models, say, within 6 inches of an objective from 3 different units, say. So 30 in total, but from 3 units. But you had, I think, 1 model from a unit of 20 or more that would trump them. It would outscore, it would get that objective, which can be very dramatic. And so in the particular context of this list, the 20 model unit that I will often have is 20 blue horrors, which are very cheap. They're 50 for 10. And they essentially come out of the pink horrors, which we'll come on to when they die, basically. So you get basically split 1 pink into 2 blues, so you get 20 models potentially in some circumstances, which could be very useful for getting a 20 model unit out of thin air, which your opponent may or may not see coming. So another sort of highlight of the list is that normally when you summon, pretty much always when you summon, you're going to be 9 inches away and unable to move in the movement phase. And so if you're a Death Army, for example, where you summon on Morghast Archive, or you summon on some skeletons or what have you, you've got to do a 9-inch charge, which is going to fail an awful lot. I found that out with Fire Slayers the other weekend at Angel Corps, even with
it's a fairly rough charge distance on 2d6.
And if you fail it, and then the other side go next, say, then they just walk up and they're going to be 4 inches, maybe 3 inches away, and they can easy charge and then get to smash you at leisure. So it's a very high risk strategy if the only damage that you're doing is from summon, charge, and melee. So a lot of the summons that we'll come on to are things that can contribute damage turn 1 at a distance, usually because they can cast spells. So they'll be 9 away, but then they'll be able to shoot something that's 9 inches behind the front line of the enemy army. So that's very useful at reach.
Wow.
I talk about the land of failed charges, 9-inch charges.
Yeah.
Obviously, having stuff that's in a summoning pool means that you can't kill it before it comes onto the table. And against some aggressive Alpha Strike armies out there, that's a big plus. They may be able to kill, all my chaff in my army, but then I might get a double turn, and then suddenly I bring on 780 points of stuff that they're unable to do anything about, and then I might get a double turn. So just
as long as your summon is successful.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've got to keep at least one wizard on. But even if they kill 4 of my wizards, say, as long as I've got 1 left, he can summon, say, either a Lord of Change or even Pink Horrors, say, who are themselves wizards. So they can then summon the next unit. They can then, etc. And you get a chain of summons, if you see what I mean. So the pink summon a Herald who summons the Lord of Change or whatever. So you can get that 780 points back on quite reliably.
Yeah.
Unless your dice are terrible, which does happen sometimes. I suppose it's probably worth saying at this point that Tzeentch are the most reliable magic users and unbinders in the game at the moment. So they are obviously dominant in that area. That is their thing, if you like, and this list very much takes advantage of that, rather than taking advantage of, say, Skyfires, which are very popular in Tzeentch armies, which are basically amazing sniper units that are also ridiculously good at melee if they get the charge in and go first. So I've tried to steer clear away from the obvious choices like Skyfires. And similarly with Alpha Strikes, and as you probably gathered from our discussion earlier and previous messages, I tend to like Alpha Strikes.
Yes. Yeah.
If the other side has bunkered well, often a melee Alpha Strike will only be able to kill a lot of chaff unless they get a double turn. And if they don't get the double turn, then they killed all the chaff, and they probably overkilled it. Like 60 bloodletters might have absolutely slaughtered 20 skinks or what have you. Several times over. But overkilling the chaff doesn't really get you anywhere if they then get the turn and shoot into your face and charge you. So
and nothing's worse than one of your mates shoots at your face, eh?
That is true.
That's sex joke number 3 for the night. I am on a roll.
Indeed.
So you've definitely put a lot of thought into the list, that's for sure. But also, I think a lot of this comes with trial and error and a lot of games played, or at least a lot of lists built.
Yeah, I mean, I've racked up quite a lot of points worth of Tzeentch, and the list has gone through lots of permutations. And this specifically is the list that I took to the GT finals, but there was a similar earlier version I took to Blackout, a Chris Tomlin event, which was really good fun. And then, as I say, this was the GT finals. I'm still working on the Tzeentch list, still sticking with the Mortals, but obviously that's another big distinction for Tzeentch. You got the Mortal side and you got the Demon side, and they don't necessarily mix that well. Although the Mortals can summon the Demons. So
that's it's hard for me because I want to talk all about the list because I've seen the other parts of it as well. And I'm trying my best not to say anything to take away from it. It's hard. I do. If I'm honest, when I was reading this list before the show, it made me want to go and look at getting this army, which is something I've never been really interested in before. I'm a order guy, I love my empire and stuff, but you've structured it really well, and I have an appreciation for the fact that you've got a different summoning pool to go either way, so you could go aggressive or not. And at the end of the night, I will ask you to pick one, but I do really, really appreciate that you've that there's a lot of thought and you can see your experience come through in your list, which is more than I could say for myself, that's for sure. So the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, for example.
Sure.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole purpose behind him and I guess the others as well, there's more to it than just summoning, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, there's a lot there, but I'm trying to think of it. What is he like? He's your standard 5 wound hero model, but he's the guys that you've chosen are also pretty tough on their own as well. Like I look at it and I think, oh well, they're not just going to be removed off the table straight away. Most of the time, they're not real squishy that all need to be hidden behind cover 100% of the time. You could come out and swing a few punches with these as well. So I do like it. Especially, I'm a fan of the Chaos Sorcerer Lord Mini. I don't know why. I think it's the staff that he's got and his shoulders. I dig those shoulder plates.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of blades models they're quite old, I suppose now, but a lot of them are classics, and even the Manticore looks amazing now. I had a converted Manticore in a previous list, so that was as the sorcerer on a Manticore, but this is just the regular guy on. Although I should say, from a hobby perspective, I try to put as many people as possible on discs or floating chariots. The theme is like lava with sort of magical fluid that's sort of summoning them into existence.
That sounds sexy. I like it. And how long did it take you to do those per base?
It's quite an easy step, but it just takes a lot of drying time. So
okay, fair enough. All right, so first up on your list here is the Curseling.
Cool.
Now, from memory, he's 5 wounds as well.
Yeah, so of the heroes, except for the Ogroid, who's 8 wounds, the others are all 5.
Okay. So and why are we using the Curseling as your general? So just run me through these in order there, and just explain to me why they're in the list.
Absolutely, sure. So Cursing's a slightly unusual choice. One of the, dare I say, weaknesses of Tzeentch is their command abilities aren't actually that hot. For example, the Fate Master, who's the other guy on a disc, has a dreadful command ability, which is like re-rolling, a dice that you happen to roll. When a dice matches that, you can re-roll it, but often you're going to be rolling bad numbers for that. So that's weak. The Lord of Change is the other obvious command ability. I've obviously gone for mortals here, so I'm not going to have the Lord of Change as a general on the table, although I might summon later. So this is the big chicken that zaps things with Gateway. Anyway, so the Curseling doesn't actually have a command ability other than Inspiring Presence, which is still quite useful. But what he does do, he is there essentially as insurance against other Tzeentch armies and other magic-dependent armies, for example, Sylvaneth, because he has 2 things that help with magic. So one of them is his Glean Magic spell, which is very easy to cast. You cast it on a 3.
Oh, that's the steel, isn't it?
This is the steel.
Yeah.
It's got 24-inch range, which is nice. So longer than the usual 18.
Yeah.
And you can basically, if you can beat the cast roll of the spell itself on 2 dice, then, match or beat, then you can steal it for the rest of the game, which is lovely.
As long as it's keyworded wizard, yeah?
Yeah. So, for example, you could nab regrowth off Alariel.
You
could steal croak spells, that kind of thing. And that's pretty nice. The other thing he has is that if he unbinds a spell, he can immediately cast it, and they cannot unbind it. And given that you've got a couple of 5s and 4s and 6s kicking around, they might cast some powerful spell, and then if he's with an 18, he can unbind it and cast it straight back in their face, and they can't do anything about it, which can be brutal. That's where his command trait comes in with magical supremacy. So that basically tops up the unbinding range, not the casting range, to 27 inches, which means he can potentially, that if someone puts a big wizard on their front line, 12 inches off their back line, then he can actually just deploy right in front of them, opposite them, and he can immediately start unbinding turn one, which is great. And the best one probably of all is the humble Mystic Shield, and Mystic Shield wins games.
So, heck yeah. Yeah.
So the rule of one applies in each turn, not each battle round. So it's possible to cast Mystic Shield myself in my turn, for example, and then if the Curseling unbinds a Mystic Shield that the other side have cast, because it's a different turn now, I can get 2 Mystic Shields up at the same time, which did happen. One is rather good, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Stopped you. So, I mean, it's hard to do, and if people are aware of it, they'll act accordingly and won't even cast spells if they know that's what's going to happen. But he can really shut down people's magic and make life difficult for any other Tzeentch army that you come up against. So,
okay.
And then shield, and then lastly, he can cast 2 spells, I should say, which is good value.
Always.
And unbind 2. And then lastly, his lore spells. So, like Sylvaneth, the Tzeentch have a system where mortal wizards can pick one of 6 spells, and demon wizards can pick one of 6 spells. Generally speaking, the mortal spells are better, the Lore of Fate. There's certainly some very nifty buffs and things in there. And Shield of Fate is one of those. It's basically a reroll saves ability, which is always good. And the more Destiny dice you have left, the stronger it is. So if you've got, I think, 7 Destiny dice left, then you can reroll 1s, 2s, and 3s. If you only got, say, 3 left, you can only reroll 1s. But nevertheless, it's very handy. And a lot of the combos involve casting that on a big unit or a chicken, the Lord of Change, and making it a lot to get rid of.
The rainbow chicken.
Oh yeah. The chicken is pretty amazing, and is a big part of many Tzeentch lists, or sometimes even 2. So moving on to Ogroid. So he basically plays the role of the tank in the army,
because he's the 8 wound model.
He's 8 wounds.
I think I'm a little disappointed though. Like for how he looks, I feel like he should have had a movement of 8 instead of 6. Do you know what I mean? Just like
9, yeah. I mean, it was when you used to be able to take the Wind Thief Charm, which is like a movement ability. You used to be able to move in the hero phase, and it was really good on him, but not anymore. So he's a bit slower, but he's still solid.
After 5 wounds, once he's taken 5 wounds, though, he's what does he add? Is it add 1 to hit?
Yeah, I think he gets +1 to hit, but he loses casting ability, which is interesting.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So you can either use the Ogroid as an outright offensive piece. You can give it, and you basically give a spell called Infusion Arcanum, which is, again, it's a Lore of Fate spell. It gives him +1 to hit and +1 to wound. His stat line is pretty great. It's all 3s and 2s anyway. And
unless he's got, except for his hooves, I think that's but that's pretty standard.
And with that buff on, he becomes 2 up, 2 up, or 2 up, 3 up. You could then potentially, that wouldn't be how I'd use him in this list, but in this list I use him as a tank. So I give him the infamous Treacherous Bond spell. So what this does is it's basically sacrificing another unit to keep your main guy alive. So after he's taken some damage, it's gone through his armor and everything.
And people underestimate the damage that this guy can put out as well, because he's doing, what is it, like Ren 2-3 damage, or Ren 1-4 damage or something with his horns?
Exactly, yeah, the horns are amazing. And the other good thing about the horns is because it's 1 attack doing a lot of damage, there's another Tzeentch spell called Arcane Transformation that the Gaunt Summoner has got, which basically allows you to add +1 attack to a 1 weapon of a hero.
Good God.
Basically double the
that's rank. I mean, you charge him into something, spit out D3 mortals.
Impact.
Like that's he's a beast. I can see why you use him as a tank. That's for sure.
Yeah, because he can still grind things down. He won't just sit there, but he will make them sit there because basically the other thing he has is the paradoxical shield, which is probably the most complicated single rule in the game. Basically, you roll your save. If you roll a 5 and a 6 or a 6, you have to re-roll it. Then you add 2 to the save, which comes out more or less to a sort of adding 2 to a save, which is pretty sweet overall because he's on a 5 up normal.
And you've got to remember that once you've done all of this, you're healing a wound in each one of your hero phases as well.
Yeah, which can really... And, of course, he's 8 wounds, so he doesn't have a damage table. He's not a monster, so he can go in cover, get a cover save. There's a lot of good things there. And once you get Treacherous Bond off, he can just hold something up for a very long time because you're just killing off Marines or what have you, or possibly horrors, which will come to whether they actually get on him. They're just killing irrelevant or relatively irrelevant units rather than hurting him. So a real handful for the opponent to deal with. Just a last point on him. His own spell is Fire Blast, which is basically a D6 mortal wound spell, but it also lets you create horrors pretty much on the target. So equal to the number of wounds you cause. So you roll a d6 for the mortal wounds. Let's say you do 5, then you can create a new unit of 5 horrors. You have to pay the reinforcement points.
So you've got your choice between pink, blue, and brimstone as well, don't you?
Indeed.
Within 1 inch of the target. Yeah. Okay.
So in what's called the balanced summoning, in the aggressive summoning options that I've suggested, I keep 50 points for summoning d6 blue horrors, which may not seem amazing, but in a game against Paul Whitehead, who's basically the godfather of Beastclaw, a very experienced player, I fired off this spell at a Stonehorn, which was guarding an objective. Only did 3 wounds to it, but then created 3 blue horrors in my hero phase. There are no restrictions on where they go. Well, they have to be within 1 inch of the target, but they're able to move, basically. So all they did is they walk out 3 inches, and they're still within range of the objective. And they scored it because they outnumbered the Stonehorn. I didn't have to put any extra effort into scoring that objective. So that spell can really mess people about.
That's cheeky. I like it. All right, and I think for me, if anyone's contemplating getting this mini, Render's always good, and this dude's dishing out mortals. He's healing back wounds. He's buffing himself for hit to hit, and on top of that, his damage is pretty crazy. Like his staff is D3 at Ren 1. His horns are what did we say? 3 at Ren 2. 3 damage at Ren 2.
I Ren at 3 damage.
Yeah, so that's nuts. Like that's for me. Like take him, and he's an 8 wound model. Like you said, he doesn't have any tables to worry about, and he's got that add 1 to hit rolls there when he's taking 5 wounds. So he's a bit of a beast.
He's a great model as well. Lovely to paint. It's a shame you don't see more of them, but they do work well in Fate Sworn lists. So that's good.
I think his point cost is pretty fair as well. So so next on that is the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. So another 5 wound model. The only thing I don't like about this guy's is save, but
I mean, he's not. He wants to be towards the back lines with the 5-up save, but he's got the steed, so he's quite mobile. But his basic role is to cast Demonic Power, which is a nice, solid buff. It's reroll hits, wounds, and saves of 1, and it can be on any unit. It's not any model like Hand of Glory, which is the Lawmaster spell. But so it's not as strong a buff as that, but it affects the whole unit, not just one hero or one model. And it can be used on anything. So it's not restricted to Tzeentch units. Obviously, a lot of Tzeentch buffs are limited to Tzeentch units. So
yeah, it's either the caster or a unit within 18 inches. So you're right, it can be anything.
Yeah. And that's probably, they increased his cost in the last quite significantly in the last version. That may well be because they thought, well, because he synergizes with any Chaos army, they put a bit of a
because we've just allowed you to re-roll any hit, wound, and save rolls of 1.
Yeah, no, it's a solid buff, and the fact it can be used on anything is really nice. So he's solid. The other thing he gives you is he can give a re-roll saves of 1 buff. It's not a spell, it's automatic. I think it's 10-inch range to any unit near him. So he can give you yet another re-roll saves of 1 around. So you've potentially got 3 sources of re-rolling saves, which is great to have.
Yeah.
So
and
that's him.
chuck him on a Chaos Steed.
Yeah, so I use a disc for this, so he flutters about. In fact, I've got him right next to me. So yeah, he's a fun model. Yeah, so he's
yeah, he's good. I like him. Now, the next up you've got the Gaunt Summoner. I'm interested in this one because it's Gaunt Summoner and Chaos Familiars. So the Gaunt Summoner by himself, I never thought was that crash. Like, 5 wounds. He's got a 6-up save, which is shit. It's for me, his attacks 3s and 4s. Like, there's no render. It was like you know why you put him on the field, and it's not to get into a fight. But I do like what you've done there with the Chaos Familiars and stuff. So
yeah, so this guy, he is essentially there for his named spell, the spell on his war scroll.
Yeah.
But he does add an awful lot generally around that. But his main spell is if a visible unit is within 18 inches, you can roll for all of the models within 18 inches, and on a 4-up, they will take a mortal wound, which is potentially brutal in against hordes, essentially.
Yeah, because you're the visible enemy unit, you're rolling a dice for each model in the target unit that's within 18 inches of the caster.
Those 30 blood, 15 die, then battle shock, d6 plus 5 more will die. So it pretty much cripples or even takes out the unit if you get lucky. It's very powerful.
Definitely. And if this is going up against, like you said, a horde unit, generally speaking, unless you're going up against a Vanguard wing with 30 shitty Liberators, they're going to be 1 wound models as well. So it's not going to be hard to start taking shit off the board, And
even against Vanguard, it's pretty painful for them.
Yeah.
Particularly if you can go first and slap the whole unit.
And then you're rolling 3 dice for, is it War Machines that are in the unit as well? Or is it? I think it's War Machines.
Yeah, it doesn't come up. You're likely to be using it against 10 models or more. But even if you kill 5 Temple Guard out of a unit of 10, that's a big hit.
Oh yeah.
Or there are a lot of units that are 1 wound models, as you say. That is really what it's there for.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it goes well with the next with your next one as well. So I can see there's a lot of this is a really well meshing bunch of casters you've got going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little points about the Gaunt Summoner. I mean, just as an introductory point, this is the one from the Silver Tower box, so it's got the 4 familiars with him. They are the main one that you take him for is +1 to cast, which is obviously significant. But he does have some other cheeky. One of them means that models within 3 inches of, I think it's Pug. They got cute names: Blot, Pug, Slop, etc. Models within 3 inches of Pug are -1 to the save rolls. It's weird that it's model units, but anyway. So that can potentially combo if you actually do get the Gaunt Summoner in combat or hiding behind a line of guys and they come in, suddenly that unit's got, or that hero or whatever has got his save reduced, which can be pretty brutal. That also combos well with the battalion, which essentially gives everybody at least -1 rend. So if he's standing nearby you, you got -2 rend.
Yeah.
Couple of points. His dagger can be an auto kill. It's quite unlikely. It's not quite as good as like the reality splitting axe. But again, with that, he's got -2 rend because of that combination of the battalion gives him rend, and then on top of that, he's got the extra rend from having Pug nearby.
Yeah.
So he's effectively -2. You could use Destiny dice for the hit and wound rolls. Then they might fail their save if it's a 6-up, say, -2, 4-up, -2, and then I think you have a bravery test essentially, and if they fail that, the model's dead. So that can surprise people occasionally.
That's the warp tongue blade, where if your roll's higher than the unit's bravery model and the unit's slain. Yeah.
And if it's a unit of 1, a hero.
Yeah, exactly. If it's a unit of 1, and generally a lot of hero units and armies have pretty, average bravery as well. So it's not hard to roll higher than a 6 or a 7.
I was very surprised one day when I discovered that the Arachnarok, which is an amazing hero, is only bravery 6.
Yeah.
Because it was up against a Morngul, which meant it was at the time it was -2 to hit. So what 6? Because usually you don't think about heroes because obviously being, but in this case it's significant potentially. So that's a little trick in the bag.
I dig it.
So he's got 2 spells. The other thing
he's got 2 as well. Did you say?
Yeah, 2 spells, 2 unbinds, which is great value for 100. And the other thing about, well, probably come onto it, but one thing you can let's come to it later. Okay, so then the Blue Scribes, these guys are almost indispensable for most Tzeentch lists. The main thing they do is they give you a reroll cast bubble around them, which is just great because it means you can just roll the casting rolls, and then if you fail, think about whether you actually need to use some Destiny dice because you really need that Mystic Shield, or you really need.
But he eradicates the need for a lot of that because you're able to re-roll the failed casting rolls on
Precisely,
like a 4-up or something ridiculous. Yeah.
No, yeah. Oh, sorry. The cast. Yeah, you do have to cast the bubble itself, but yes, it's a trivially easy spell to make.
Even Vince could make that roll, I think is how the saying goes, on a 4-up.
Yes.
So
so they also have, because they're the Blue Scribes, they're these 2 dudes flying on the disc writing down spells in a book. They will learn spells cast near them, so within 18 on a 4-up, including your enemy spells. So that's another way on top of the Curseling that you can get extra spells from your enemy, and on top of that they can be like a reserve. So for example, if you got, people probably know that the Chicken, the Lord of Change, is known for its gateway spell, which is basically could do about 6 mortal wounds at 18-inch range. If he casts that near the Blue Scribes on a 4-up, they'll learn that spell for the rest of the game. The Blue Scribes are a movement 16 hero for 120 points that actually fly off somewhere else, and then if you get the double, they could cast it instead, while the Chicken stays put on an objective or cast something else. So, if the Chicken dies, he can still cast it because he's written it in his book. So they're a very neat little utility piece, and you'll usually see those in Tzeentch lists. Oh, sorry, the final point on them, on a 2, they can also, instead of doing a cast roll, just roll a 2-up and cast a spell, which is a good emergency device. That means you're not using a bubble spell, but you've got, say you need to cast an 11 to get a summon off and you haven't got any Destiny dice, you can just go 2-up, done, which is great.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good solid number of casters that you've got there, and I think it also allows for it can be a little bit forgiving as well. So if you botch a deployment or a summon, or you get double turned, and things like that, this allows you the flexibility to recover still, which I like. Okay, so in the units we've got Chaos Warriors. So everybody knows Chaos Warriors, 2 wounds, 4-up save, bravery 6. They've got the standard Chaos Warrior weapons. I believe you're using the hand weapons, yeah?
Yeah, which is probably controversial. I know Tom would use the shield ones for a defense purpose, but all of the units in the that aren't heroes are essentially, above average chaff. Because the Fatesworn requires 10 units, so
it does. Yeah,
there are 10 mortal units plus the blue scribes, so who are demons, so they're not in the battalion. So, it's overall it's 2 drops. So I took the hand weapons because I found that given the champion gets +1 to hit, with 2 hand weapons, they're re-rolling hits of 1. They're actually pretty reliable at getting some hits on, because they're either 3. The 4 regular guys are 3 up re-rolling ones, and the champion is 2 up re-rolling ones.
Yeah, and you can add 1 to your run and charge rolls as well if you've got that musician there. And like you said, the leader has that add 1 to the result of any hit rolls, which is always good as well. And then you've got your shields.
And they got which turns them into effectively cheap elite infantry, which is handy.
Yeah, they're really good. I mean, they're a staple in a lot of Chaos armies. So
definitely, I mean, at 90 points, I mean that basically pushes out the acolytes, who, as you saw, are now decorating Archeon's base.
Yeah,
because they're better than acolytes, they're tougher than acolytes. It's all good really. Then we could probably cover the other guys fairly quickly. So the Marauders.
My favourite. I love Marauders. They're understated and they need more table time.
Yeah, I think you can actually take a unit of 40 of them for, is it 200 points?
Oh, it's 3/5 of fuck all. Like you can take, they're really good. And you've got you're making 2 attacks with your leader. You've got the standard bearer, icon bearer, whatever it is, and then you've got your drummer as well. So you're adding 1 to your run and charge rolls for these guys as well, which is freaking amazing. Plus, they've got that hordes thing where if you roll a dice before a unit, before you pile in, and you're adding 1 to the roll if you've got 20 or more. So there's the horde incentive there as well. If it's a 4 or more, you're adding 1 to the result of any hit rolls for those attacks at the end of the phase. And if the results are 6 or more, then you're adding 1 to the result of any wound rolls as well. And the important thing to remember there is that it says 6 or more, which means that if you've got a modifier for it, then you can actually change that to a 5 up or a 4 up, etc., etc. So very good. Yeah.
20 or more. Which is...
Brinley uses these against me, and I freaking hate it. Bastard. They do more damage than what you think if they're used properly. People just need to learn to use them properly, including myself. So.
And they're 60 points, which is
they're so cheap for what they, especially if you've got a war shrine. They love the war shrine. So, all right, and you've got the chaos spawn there, which why wouldn't you? 50 points. I mean, yeah.
That's how room, which is crazy for.
Is that the chaos spawn? Is he? He's 2d6. Is he 2d6 attack or 2d6 move? Oh, am I getting confused with something else?
Both. Yeah, he's 2d6 move and 2d6 attacks.
Okay.
Attacks, it becomes 3 up instead of 4 up.
Jesus.
So it can be quite. If you actually took a big unit at spawn, you could, and you rolled a 12 or a 10 with a double 5, they would actually be pretty horrendous. You could get 60 attacks at 3 up with -1 rend because of that battalion. All of these units, you'll notice, don't have rend as standard, but get it because you've taken battalion, which basically means they're all efficient.
The thing with these guys is that a unit of them, you're not limited to a model count. So you can have as many in a unit as you want of the cat spawns as well, I believe.
I think it's 1 to 6. I mean, the reason they're in here is because they're very cheap. They're 50 points. I think that's actually fair value. It's a 5-wing model for 50 points, so it's the same ratio as a Liberator, so 100 points for.
Hang on, I'm actually going to bring up there.
Yeah, it's the last one in the Disciples of Tzeentch book, if that helps.
Here we go. Yeah. So, a unit of Chaos Spawn has any number of models. They are armed with a variety of freakish mutations. Yeah, so there's no limitation to how many you can actually take in a unit.
Well, it's on the pitch battle profiles. It's like minimum 1, maximum 6.
Yeah.
In the handbook, in the general's handbook.
Damn.
But I mean, you can still take 6, which is
but why? Yeah, but 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like them. I think they're just cool, and they're a good gap filler if you're trying to make 50 points. And
yeah, and I didn't have any on this army, so I'm bang on 2,000 usually. So, well, yeah, I am bang on 2,000. So they filled that gap perfectly when 10 points.
Definitely.
So
and the last thing that you've got here, these are my favorite out of the Slaves of Darkness collection, the Chaos Chariots. Now, I like these because their move is shit, and I love that. They deserve a better move than 8, but they're a 7 wound model with a 4-up save, which is pretty damn good, and they've got a mega shit ton of attacks and abilities. So
yeah, just one thing on the movement I just add is they get to add D6 to that move.
They do,
so they are a bit. Yeah,
but it's unreliable. I mean, you can roll a 1 and a 2, and then you're only. Do you know like? True. That would be. I think that would. I would probably take more if there was a movement 10 plus the dice. So
8.
Yeah, it's just they can disappoint you more when you're relying on getting like a 4-up sort of thing. And everybody knows that when you need a 4-up is when you're most likely to get between a 1 and a 3. So, but yeah, they the leader, like if you're taking a unit of them, he's an exalted something or rather. Anyway, he's if he's got the flail or the sword, he's hitting on a 3-up instead of a 4-up, which is always good. And then they've got that ability. I want to say spare the rod, spoil the child. I can't remember the name of the bloody ability.
Oh yeah, the horses get hits and wounds on the charge.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
They're
and these horses have rent because
so
the horses, as usual, do more damage than the riders. Probably not on average, but they often do end up doing more damage, as we all know. The mounts usually do the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is it? This on the charge, you're adding 1 to the hit and wound rolls, of the steeds, of the horses.
So they become quite reliable.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a lot of other units with mounts that don't have that sort of punch that these guys have. So, and then underneath that here, we've also you've got your Fate Sworn Warband as your battalion.
Yeah. Just one last quick thing on the chariots.
Yeah.
I mean, the value of a unit where one model has 7 or 8 wounds, I'm also thinking of the Korgorath, which is like 80 points for 8 wounds, is just huge because a typical unit might attack that and do like 5 wounds. So against a unit of 10 or say 8 models of 1 wound each, you lose a lot of your attacking power, but you could take 6 off a chariot and it's still hitting you just as hard. So they are a bomb.
Someone's asked why the war flails as well. So basically, the war flails are you're choosing D6 attacks rather than 3 attacks. You're to hit and to wound are exactly the same, and you're giving up the rend with the flails.
Although you're not because of the battalion.
Exactly. So that's why you take the war flails, because the D6 attacks, you can double the amount of output. You have the potential to. So
yeah, it is slightly better. And when you roll that 6, it might actually turn, it might slightly turn the game. That might get you an objective back or something. So
yeah,
they're a good performer. One of my club mates, Rob Bradley, always gives me a lot of stick for taking the chariots, but they've done it. They've done okay. They've carried their weight.
And I dig the chariots, and they're just a great model to paint as well. So
I did my ones as like 2. Did the mortal guys on top of the what are they called? The Sky Sharks. So that will look very easy. So that's all good. So then So we discussed the Ren thing, which is just lovely. The main reason for taking it is frankly to make the army into a 2-drop list, which means you can decide who goes first against pretty much everyone. And against KO, so Kharadron Overlords, they will often be 2-drops as well. So at least you're on a dice off as to who goes first, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
You're going to probably beat any other Tzeentch list because most of them will be, say, the typical change host, which is like a demon battalion where they teleport all over the place. Plus, usually either Kairos, who's like a super Lord of Change, who isn't that super, or Skyfires, and then the Gaunt Summoner because he doesn't fit in the change host. So that'll typically be 3 drops. So you beat them, which means you can go first and start sniping off their heroes and getting people in position to do some unbinding, as discussed in that first turn, which can put you in a good position. And just the one exception there is that I suppose that leaves Sylvaneth, and pardon the pun, but Sylvaneth are known for being susceptible to mortal wounds, and in the infamous phrase of Tyler Emerson, I'm sure Elric Edge will appreciate that. Are usually untroubled by the sticks. It can be very for them. I do have a Sylvaneth army. It isn't painted fully, to say the least.
I have a starter set that's built out in the world somewhere. I think Jono, if you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you've still got my trees, buddy.
Is he painting them for you?
He's welcome to.
Yes, if he fancies it.
Yeah, because nothing sounds more fun than painting trees. So, all right, so that's the Fatesworn Warband. Reinforcement points will view your summoning pool. This first one that we're going to look at is your balanced summoning list. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's switch to that here.
This is what I'll take against sort of all comers if I'm not entirely sure what the opponent does. If I need to play somewhat defensively, if there's a lot of objectives that I need to hold, so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, most people will know the Lord of Change, but he's got some fairly good range attacks there. I like the 3s, and 3s are always good. Plus, it's 2d6 attacks, so anytime you can be throwing out 12 shooting attacks from one model at 18 inches is it's nothing to scoff at.
Yeah,
and he's just a crazy
away.
Yeah.
So I usually go with the sword, which is very, very choppy, as that good old -2 Ren 3 damage combo that we saw in the with the Ogroid. So as you say, you could go with the shooting attack, you could go with the sword, and either way, he's a tasty thing to have on the board. If you're going a bit more aggressively, you can summon him 9 away, cast his spells, so Gateway, hopefully 6 mortal wounds, then probably another offensive spell that might be, say, 3.5 mortal wounds, so kill a hero, kill maybe 2 heroes if you're lucky. And then on top of that, you're 9 inches away, but you use your Destiny dice, as we discussed. Use a 4 and a 5, make the charge into whatever's in front of you. It's got a reasonable range with that sword, so maybe it gets over a line of chaff, or you've shot the chaff off anyway, perhaps with the Gaunt Summoner, which we'll come on to.
Yeah.
And off we go.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole 2s to wound at Ren 2, 3 damage. And that's before any buffs or anything like that. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, and you can use the Destiny dice on the 4s, and then you slap demonic power on him, which we discussed. So reroll hits and wounds.
Yeah, that's cray.
The wound rolls become 35 out of 36, which is great. -2, 3 damage. So, yeah, he's and
14 wounds is it's a lot. And then the only downside to him is that he can summon a Lord of Change as a Lord of Change, but it's on is it a 10? It's a 10, isn't it?
On a 10, which is, I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, particularly, I've just noticed there's a slight error in this list, but yeah, so we'll come to that in a minute. But basically, if you pop him on a Balewind, sorry, not him. If you pop the Gaunt Summoner on a Balewind, say, then he'll be +1 because he's got his little familiar with him, plus another one with the Balewind, which is this thing that gives you +1 to cast and unbind, and also doubles the range of your spells. You summon it for 100 points. So you get the Gaunt Summoner up on that, and then he can basically cast Summon a Lord Change on an 8, which is not too bad. So you use 2 4s, or you just try and roll it, and then if you fail it, then use the reroll from the Blue Scribes, and then use the Destiny Dice on the reroll. So you get the chicken on pretty reliably. The chicken also is amazing at casting spells because he matches the lower casting or unbinding roll to match the higher one. So if you rolled a 6 and a 1, that becomes a 6 and a 6, which is just brilliant. So he's extremely reliable, and you can very efficient. You basically get double value out of a Destiny Dice. You use a 5, you'll get a 10, which is great. Yeah, he's firing on all cylinders again. So typically you put him forward and then you surround him. Well, if you're being aggressive, obviously you charge in as discussed. Otherwise, you put a ring of pink horrors around him. So these are your sort of the battle line of the demon side of things. And what they do is they have one spell themselves. They get a buff to casting if they're near demons, which is nice. So you probably give them another offensive spell, probably does about 3.5 mortal wounds. And then they sit there, they do some shooting in the shooting phase. They're 9 inches away, so you can potentially do another charge with them, or you can just sit them there as a bunker, effectively. So sort of a forward bunker, a bit like Tom's, alpha bunkering concept. It's a bit smaller than 30 Chaos Warriors, but it's still a line that you've got to get through. And of course, what pink horrors do is split, essentially. That's what you take them for. So if you kill, worst case, you kill like 8 of them in a turn, they will create a brand new unit of 16 blue horrors. Sorry, not in a turn, in a phase. So say in a combat phase, you kill 16, sorry, you kill 8, you get 16 blue horrors, which can be set up. They have to be all within 6 inches of the unit, which is a bit more restricted than it was. So you can't conga line the way you used to, but nevertheless, you can suddenly have another line of models that you've got to chop through. And then it gets worse because they then split into brimstones, which are even cheaper, as you can see, and they get another line of chaff. And depending on the sequence of what happens, you could potentially retreat back. If your turn is next, then you can retreat back the line of chaff to just over 3 inches away, stand there, and then they've got to come and charge you the next turn. Or you can stay in combat to stop them if their turn is going to be next or likely to be next. Good example against Joe Purcell, who's a very good player, sometimes known as Mediocre Joe. He's on the Bravery One podcast. So I started off a game against the horrendous 21 Skyfire combo. So a 9, a 9, and a 3 of Skyfires, which, as discussed, are these sort of flying, tanky sniper units that also do tons and tons of melee damage.
Yeah.
So they're basically amazing. And their movement's 16. So I went first against him, and because I outdropped him, so it was only 2 or 3 drops. And I did one smart thing and one stupid thing. The smart thing was lobbing in the pinks who got killed, but then they produced a bunch of 10 blue horrors who were then standing within 3 inches of every single one of his significant units. So the whole lot of them had to just stand there and shoot them and try and get rid of them. So he essentially lost an entire turn. He didn't. So he got the double, but effectively it was like a single because he killed the blues, and then then he actually came and hit me. I did something stupid that game, which was a summon on 20 bloodletters who bounced shockingly. But anyway, it was still close even after that mistake. So the tactic of lobbing in the pinks is phenomenal. The other well-known thing you can do with them is on Scorched Earth, say, you can lob in 10 pinks they get killed, then you got 20 blues, and that may well outnumber the what's left of the defenders on that objective, particularly if their base sizes are bigger than the 25 mils for blue horrors. So you can flood an objective, and a scorched earth is a battle plan where you can burn the enemy's objective markers, not your own. And there's 3 of them. So if you lob in the pinks and burn one of theirs turn 1, and there's very little they can do about it sometimes. I did this to Matt Lyons. He had 5 Blight Kings sitting on an objective, so it's kind of lose-lose. Either he didn't attack the pinks, and then the pinks outnumbered him, or he did attack the pinks, and then the blues outnumbered him, and I burnt it. And then those Blight Kings are basically sitting on an objective, walking at movement 4. Sitting on a former objective, which I've already got D3 points on, and they're sort of out of the game. And I've just, hold them up with the blues. So they are the blues and the brims are just phenomenal.
I do dig them.
Yeah.
Now,
really...
I noticed here as well, you've got the plague toads there.
Yeah, and that's what.
So they're obviously Forge World.
Yeah, I've just noticed that's kind of a mistake. I should have put the Balewind there instead. Which is the same cost, because those are basically 2 options. So let's pretend that says Balewind. It could, as discussed at the start, flexibility is the hallmark of this list. So I've got a couple of combos, but let's focus on the Balewind example. As you can probably imagine, you can summon like 10 Plague Bearers or 3 Plague Toads. That's basically dump some tough guys on an objective to sit there and die slowly. So it's an obvious thing to do. So the Balewind. So let's pretend that was there. So the Balewind. Okay. So basically, this doubles the range and gives +1 to cast and unbind for your Gaunt Summoner. So it makes his Infernal Flame spell very nasty indeed. Because you can typically hit a unit even if it's quite near the back line of the enemy, and very often with that spell you can take out a 30 block turn 1 if you choose to go first, which can be huge. You can also use this against Araboys. It's not quite as effective against them, but it gives you a reasonable chance of getting those units well below 20 models, which makes them a lot less scary. The other nice thing about summoning is that you can pick the spells, the stuff you summon no at the time of summoning them. So, for example, there's another Tzeentch spell, which is a bit like a mini version of the Gaunt Summoner spell. It basically does the same effect, but on a 6-up instead of a 4-up. It's called Treason of Tzeentch. So you can give, if you really need to kill a horde, and I did this against 30 Bloodletters at the GT finals, you summon on, say, the Lord of Change, and he then knows Treason. So he does his gateway and shoots off a Blood Secretor, which is nice. And then he uses Treason on a big unit of 30 and kills like 5 of them. And then you follow up with Infernal Flames and kill a lot more.
Yeah, and then you let Battle Shock take care of the rest.
Precisely. I mean, even with Bravery 10, you can. I made that unit pop, which was pretty horrific.
Definitely.
So that's that one. One little final point on the Fatesworn Warband, actually. It also gives all your heroes the right to cast Arcane Bolt, but that's still subject to the rule of 1. So you can't do 2 Arcane Bolts. But what it does let you do, the wizard who's got, say, 2 spells can do those 2 spells and then cast Arcane Bolt through the battalion. So that Gaunt Summoner sitting on the Balewind Vortex could potentially do Infernal Flames and Arcane Bolt, and in this case, Arcane Transformation, although that doesn't necessarily need the long range. So it can be a bit more of a sniper. So you've got an awful lot of mortal wounds that can be precisely targeted at the likes of Lord Castellance, or Savage Auric big bosses, the likes of Manfred or other death heroes that have only got a 6-up ward now, and you can pretty reliably take them off. I think, for example, talking about the Vanguard wing, which I think we touched on earlier. I think it was the third game of the GT finals. So Craig Namvar, who's a good player, he was using Vanguard Wing. He didn't come up with it in its modern form. He borrowed the concept, and anyway, he deployed his Liberators very well right at the back. This was on Battle for the Past, so it's the yeah. So the Liberators were miles away, but they were going to teleport. But he stuck his Star Drake about 35 inches away from one of my wizards. So some of the Lord of Change, and then some of the Herald. Oh my God, that actually segued. Right next to each other, and just went Gateway, Inferno, and then the Herald is basically another cheap, efficient sniper. So he lobs out mortal wounds. He has a D6 mortal wounds spell himself. He can know another spell, which is also D6 mortal wounds, called Bolt of Tzeentch, which is the typical one you might give him. He has a 3D once per game. He can do one spell at 3D with 3 dice to cast it, which can be really useful. I mean, you might want to use that to bring on a Lord of Change. For example, if your Destiny dice were terrible, then you could go, okay, I'll use the 3d6 and I'll go 3, do some massive 3, 3, 4, use some mediocre Destiny dice, and guarantee that 10 to get the Lord of Change on, for example. So that's he's a really useful one. And the other great thing about him is if he keeps rolling 9 or more to cast, he can keep casting spells. So he's a great way to sort of, you really need to kill something like that Star Drake with the Staunch Defender. You just keep using those guys to get him to get those 9s, and he just lobs out, 3, maybe even 4 spells. And takes it out. He can't cast the same spell twice, but he could even do your Mystic Shield if you want to, or what have you. So basically, I just zapped off the Star Drake turn 1, which was good. It was still a tough game because the Vanguard Wing is so strong.
Oh, it is, dude. And the reason that's tough though is because of the units that you're doing it with. If it was anything else other than Liberators, it wouldn't be so bad.
It's the re-rolling the saves of 1 is huge. I think, to be honest, I think if they were capped at 20 models as they used to be, so only 40 wounds, I think they would actually be fine. It would be a strong list, but wouldn't be so strong. But the fact that you can get a 60 wound unit it's got such good defense is painful. But I did beat him in Craig in that game, which is pleasing. And I tied with another Vanguard Wing, and then I lost in the final table at Angel Corey against another Vanguard Wing. So played.
See, mate, they're everywhere.
Well, they were the top place and second place at that event were Vanguard Wings, including clubmate Ben Murphy. So well done to him. The strong list, and you have to play it well. You can screw it up bad. If you lose the Castellan early, that's a big deal. But I think my list can challenge it precisely because I outdrop it, so I can go turn 1, and if they don't have line of sight blocking terrain, maybe I can kill the Castellan turn 1 or the Star Drake as discussed. So there's options.
There is.
So that is the flexible list. Do you have any other questions on the flexible one?
No, I'm pretty good with that one actually. I think knowing both of these, I probably prefer the next one, but I have an aggressive personality, so we'll need to we'll need to go through this one fairly quickly because I have to go to work soon.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So this one is a lot simpler because this is essentially a turbo cannonball, and a really experienced player.
Can I just say, if anyone out there in my gaming groups are thinking of building a Tzeentch army, please make it this one so I can play against it because it looks amazing. I dig it.
You'll have to either come to England, or I'll have to come and visit you guys in Australia when I come over next time and play. That'll be sweet.
Hell yeah!
Bring these chaps with me. Okay, so Dan Ford, very experienced player, started off with being the master of Tomb Kings, and has now switched on to doing the Murder Host. He does the full 120 blood letters. He uses it very well. They're all color coded. It's phenomenal to play against. He's a real joy to play against. Anyway, he taught me the concept of lobbing cannonballs into the opponent that they really don't want to deal with. Ideally, several in a row. So, for example, a wave of like skeleton chariots, then another wave of skeleton chariots, then an Acropolis to sort of sweep everything before them, because they do so much more damage than their points cost, and you just win the game that way. And you're also pinning them back in their territory while you can go and grab the objectives. So this list is similar in concept to that, because I've got all those chaffy units, the 6 units of warriors and marauders and spawn and chariots who can go and sit on objectives while the stuff I've summoned does the real heavy lifting and the damage. So I think you might want to pull up the Exalted Greater Demon War Scroll. You don't have to. I can do it sort of by...
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for here. I don't think I've actually got him.
Okay, well, not to worry.
No.
I mean, on first inspection, when you look at it, you think, oh, it's basically a Greater Unclean One times 2. But actually, the shooting attack is 4 times bigger than the regular one, which is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, considering that the Great Unclean One was already,
solid enough.
Yeah,
so,
and just to make sure you get the Forge World one, because the current GW one's ugly as hell. But yeah.
Well, hopefully, come January or February, there might be a brand new shiny plastic model. Let's all hope so.
I would love that. Yeah.
That would be sweet. So am I right in thinking that Paul Conti is going to be one of the judges?
Say again, sorry?
Am I right in thinking that Paul Conti is going to be one of the judges?
He certainly will be.
Sweet. Okay, so I know, Paul, I know you love Mass Hammer in particular. So summon on this chap. Ideally, there's a nice piece of damned terrain somewhere in the middle, which he then proceeds to take. So he takes D3 mortal wounds. He's got a 5-up ward save, being Nurgle, so he only takes maybe 1 or 2. Then he heals back D3 wounds because he's Nurgle in the hero phase, so he's usually back up to full all his wounds, which is 16 wounds, remembering. So he's got +1 to hit. You slap Demonic Power on him, which, as discussed, is reroll hits, wounds, and saves of 1 on any unit. Then you summon on. You also stick Mystic Shield on him, of course, so he's on a 2-up reroll.
Naturally, yeah.
5-up, 16 wounds, so obviously exceptionally tanky. Then is the bit which makes it work. So it's what I call nudging the beetle. So something that's become a bit more popular. We came up with the idea in the context of Sylvaneth, because the beetle is Alariel, and basically you would have a branch wraith sitting behind Alariel, which would summon a Balewind. And one of the things the Balewind does is, obviously it's a scenery piece, but then it also pushes models or nudges them so they have to be more than 3 inches away from the Balewind itself. And effectively, that's equivalent to a 5-inch move, or just over.
Yeah.
Basically, Alariel gets nudged forward 5 inches off the 12-inch line. She's movement 16, so that's effectively 21 inches. And so she's potentially doing a 3-inch charge if they're on their 12-inch line, or otherwise pretty likely to get in.
Yeah.
So what you do here, and also Byron Ord from Facehammer has been using this quite effectively, or very effectively, I should say, with his mixed order, double Frost Phoenix, Dragon, Lawmaster, and some Skinks and more Wizards and so on list. The one that won the finals and has one other.
Yeah.
Well worth listening to on Facehammer. So he does the same thing to nudge the Dragon or to nudge a Phoenix. So what you do here, the distinction here is that you summon on Ted, Exalt Ted, the fatty, the Great Unclean One, the Exalted Greater Demon and Nurgle.
Yeah.
So you summon on Ted, summon on a Herald directly behind him. The Herald then, if necessary, uses the same Herald as in the other list. If necessary, uses his 3d6 cast to summon the Balewind to make absolutely sure you get it off. And then he's got +1 to cast, which is nice. So he can keep doing what he did in the previous list, which is do his offensive spells. So he starts zapping D6 mortal wounds at 36-inch range from that Balewind, which is already in the middle of the table now. So more importantly, it means that the Great Unclean One shifts forward 5 inches. So instead of being 9 inches away, he's now 4 inches away. Now, hopefully, your opponent has got, say, a line of, say, melee troops, and then behind them a line of squishy shooting troops, and they could be something even like Skyfires. So what you then do is the Great Unclean One, it casts its own vomit spell. It's bad. It's a 14-inch line of D3 mortal wounds. It's cast on a 7, so you've got to be a bit lucky, but that could take quite a few wounds off heroes, and the things that are right in front of you. So you do that vomit spell. Then you unleash. You've got another spell on top of that. He can, if you have Arcane Bolt left, he could do it if you want. And then you do in the shooting phase, because you're now 4 inches away from the front line, the 7-inch shooting attack is now in range, hopefully, of that unit behind the front line of the enemy. So you shoot that one and charge the one in the front. So
I see what you're talking about, yeah.
And because of the damned buff, and even without the damned buff, it's very, very strong. But with the damned buff, Paul will love this, 35 out of 36 hit, 35 out of 36 wound, -2 Ren, D3 damage. So 5/6 of that is going to penetrate a 4-up save. So that could be Judicators, for example, hiding behind Liberators or whatnot. And then on average, it's 2 damage. It's 11.03 damage, just the shooting attack. So just straight away takes off a Judicators comfortably, or a hero that's unfortunately standing too close to or 2 heroes that are standing near the front, or what have you. If it's up against a 5-up save, they don't even get a save, and it's even more reliable. And obviously, if you get lucky with any of those dice rolls, if you roll 10 attacks, or you roll a couple of extra 3s on the D3s, you can start doing ridiculous amounts of damage with that. So it's a horribly good shooting attack. And then he charges that front unit, so it's a 4-inch charge. Should be able to make that. Even if you're Vince, even if you're me, I have failed.
Yeah.
Does impact hits to units within an inch, which is nice on a 4-up. So that could be 1 or 2 units, so a couple of extra D3 mortal wounds. Then his melee profile, he starts off with 4 attacks at, I think it's 3-up, -2, 3 damage. So very good. With the damned, it'll be 2-up on the hit rolls, then 3-up on the wounds. But the 4 attacks, you cast the spell Arcane Transformation, which we discussed a while ago from the Gaunt Summer. Give him an extra attack on the sword. That's for the rest of the game. So for the rest of the game, he's on 5 attacks. And then that proceeds to blend that unit in front of him. 2-up rerolling ones, 3-up rerolling ones to wound, -2 Ren, 3 damage. So after he's deleted the unit that he shot and the unit that is in front of him, he's sitting hopefully on an objective or near one, right in the enemy's face, and daring them to try and kill him. And usually if they try and kill him, that will go badly. So for example, I played against clubmate Ben Raven, or Dead Ben. We have a lot of Bens in the club. We have about 7. Anyway, so he takes an amazing death list, which
that's a British thing, mate. They go, what should we name him? Oh, look, I don't know, mate. Let's just call him Ben as well. Oh, but the neighbour's kid's Ben. Yeah, well, so's their neighbour. You just got Bens everywhere, man.
Yeah. They are spreading, and there's a lot of them in the hobby. There's Ben Johnson, Ben Curry, all over the place. Anyway, so he runs 4 flappies, so like Flesh Eater Court, Zombie Dragons, and Terrorgeists. So I did this to him and basically killed one Terrorgeist and half killed the other one. And then he proceeded to tank the 2.5 remaining flappies for about 2 turns, while doing a lot of damage with his sword every time, and just tank them a lot. And then I proceeded to mop up the objectives and so on. So I think it was a close one, but it's a really strong cannonball, essentially. It's fire and forget, and you've still got that herald doing the sniping. So if they don't kill the herald well, and
then for the lulz, you've got some blue horrors still, of course.
Yeah, so the Ogroid can do his spell and get some blue horrors to come and sneakily grab an objective, or get in the way. Generally, maybe wrap them around the side of Ted and make him harder for them to get lots of models into. He's on a fairly big bet, but not enormous. It's a great.
I like it. I do like it. I like that one. If you had to pick though between the two, which summoning pool would you take?
If I had to pick, I would take the aggressive one, because, as you say, it's more fun. It's more. And most people, when they think of Tzeentch, will think, oh, they're going to have horrors, Lord Change, so on and so forth. So chucking this big Nurgle dude at them and saying, "Can you kill me?" is really fun. and
Yeah.
and usually they're probably better off fleeing away from him. But if he's on an objective, then that isn't so good for them.
Yeah.
So I'll go with the aggressive one because it's more different. So.
Great minds think alike. That's what I reckon. Well, thank you. Actually, I've learned a lot about an army that haven't had much time on the table with, either against or with. So it's going to be interesting. The only question I have left for you is, with this list, what is the weakness of this list? What do you think the weakness is? If you had to say you've got one weakness, what would it be for this list?
I think the flexibility really doesn't give them. Really gives the flexibility is so good that there are no sort of true hard counters. Kharadron Overlords is probably the hardest one to beat, and it's pretty much going to be a coin flip. You know, if they're 2 drops, you're 2 drops.
Yeah.
If they win that flip, they can go first and potentially kill a lot of your heroes turn 1 with their skyhooks coming off the Arcanauts, who will be in range even if you backline units, unless you could get lucky and get some nice line of sight blocking scenery, which would allow you alive even against those vicious skyhooks. So that's probably the matchup that you're least looking forward to. However, if you get the initiative for the first turn, you can summon a line of pink horrors in front of you and move your chaff forward, zap off their 10 Arcanauts who are actually on the table, and then wait for the inevitable ironclad with a load of balloon guys coming out of it, and deal with that accordingly. They'll kill a lot of your chaff, but then hopefully you've got the Nurgle guy to counterpunch with, or the Lord of Change and the horrors and the Herald. So you've got options there.
Okay, all right.
Death quickly.
Cool.
I know time.
Say again, sorry.
I gather that Clint Mallet, I have to say that's an awesome name. He's doing a death list, yeah?
I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of a death list.
Okay.
Clint is a death player. He knows his death. It's what he does, and it's going to be interesting. I think for starters, you're at a disadvantage because he's seen your list now. So we'll be getting him on soon. However, if I had to pick between the 2 forces, so Tzeentch and Death, generally, given the current meta and the way the game's played at the moment, you would expect Death to fall behind a little bit. But there are ways to make up for that. So it'll be interesting. And I have one more question as well. Here we go. Okay. So strongest matchup, and that's from Philip. Thank you, Philip. The strongest matchup. If you had to pick a force, which one would you beat with the most ease? Be it Free Guild, Stormcast, etc.
Sure, it's probably force, because they don't have any ranged threat. I can hold them up with the big Nurgle dude and just zap away, really, and then actually counterpunch with the Nurgle dude, or with the chariots and warriors and so on. And they don't have any way of getting around the chaff lines, essentially.
Yeah.
To get the Gaunt Summoner, who will be zapping off all their hordes of ghouls. And I think the fact that Death have lost the 5-up, the 5-up, you know what I mean, the 5-up ward save is pretty devastating to them. They've already got sort of fewer war scrolls than Order have got battalions, so their choices.
This is true. I'm interested to see if the Nagash will hit the table, so that'll be an interesting one.
The Nagash would be an interesting one. Probably because match him magic for magic and just kill the stuff that he tries to summon on, to be honest.
Yeah, and the spells from those books and stuff. And then maybe something like an Archon, the Black, or something like that, where you've got the Curse of Ages as well, and things like that. They're still pretty rough. So
find that spell, cast it back in his face. He wouldn't be very.
I was going to say, now that's the spell you want to be stealing, mate. There's definitely that one.
Hand of Dust, indeed. It's pretty terrifying as well.
Yeah, definitely. I dig it. All right, mate. Well, listen, that'll bring us to the end for tonight. I thank you very much for coming on to the show, and thank you very much for a detailed review of the list as well. It's bloody awesome list, man. And I think it's definitely going to be hard to beat. So what's going to happen next is Clint's going to come on the show. We're going to go through his list, and then we're going to get our judges back on. We're going to judge the both of your lists at face value, obviously, as we spoke about earlier. And from there, we will be picking a winner. If you win, we'll be needing you to select the first contender for round 3. So if you do win, who will you be nominating?
I was in the UK. He's a very strong player. He'll be going to the Masters, I believe. He used to do Tomb Kings, and he has now been doing a year of Khorne, so doing his 120 Bloodletter Murder Host. So
no one's perfect. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
He's a lovely guy as well. Very knowledgeable, great to play with. He's actually managed to 120 Bloodletters play fast, efficiently, which is a real, with color coding and lots of movement trays. And he's a joy to play against. I've learned a lot from him. So I would go with Dan Ford. All
right, cool. All right, mate, no worries. Well, we will be speaking again soon. And again, for anyone who's been watching, make sure you check out the links below and see the bat reps that are up there as well. And visit the Twitter page as well there. Say hello. Mate, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. It's been really awesome just to get a list from the other side of the world. So thank you very much. I definitely think that it's probably the strongest list that we've had out of the 3 lists so far, I think. Don't tell Paul and Tom that though.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure doing this. Really enjoying watching your shows as well. So yeah, good stuff. Keep it coming. You have a great rate of content, which is awesome to see.
No worries. I will ask a personal favour probably a bit later as well around pork scratchings. You can't get them here in Australia, and I really need some. So we're going to have to organise some sort of plastic crack for pork scratchings trade.
Yeah. Pipeline as well.
Yeah. All right, mate. Thank you very much, and we'll catch up with you again soon. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.